This commentary is pertaining to Sonya Massey. We're going to talk about the deputy's perception versus fear. And then we're also going to talk about what's been seen and not seen, because everyone has a perception of what they think they saw and heard. We're also going to base what you think you saw, heard, versus what they were experiencing at that moment. Thank you for your time. Welcome to the Vault XL.
One second.
We don't need a fire over here.
Right. One second. Where you going?
We're hot steaming water.
Away from hot steaming water?
Yeah.
Oh, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus.
I'll do you in the name of God. That's where now. She traded. Say. Drop the pot. Shots fired. Shots fired. Drop pot. Newly released police body cam video out of Illinois captures those terrifying moments when a woman is killed by a sheriff's deputy. Now, earlier this month, 36-year-old Sonya Massey, who was a mother of two, was shot 3 times with one deadly blow to the head by Deputy Sean Grayson after she called 911 to report a prowler. Grayson has since been fired and charged with murder. Scripps News' Clayton Sandell has more.
It was July 6th, just before 1 a.m.
Sheriff's office.
Sonya Massey, a 36-year-old black woman, called 911 reporting a prowler. 2 Sangamon County, Illinois sheriff's deputies respond.
You called us.
Inside, deputies chat with Massey and ask her for ID. One deputy then notices a pot of boiling water on the stove.
We don't need a fire over here.
When Massey goes to move the pot from the stove to the sink,
Where you going?
We're hot steaming water.
Away from hot steaming water?
Yeah.
the calm is suddenly replaced by chaos.
I'll do you in the name of
God, that's where now. She traded. Say.
Seconds later, as Massey ducks, Deputy Sean Grayson opens fire.
Shots fired.
Massey is killed. When a sergeant arrives, he asks about a weapon.
Where's he going? No, she had boiling water and came at me with boiling water.
Grayson was fired and charged with first-degree murder, aggravated assault, and official misconduct. He pleaded not guilty.
The video is shocking.
Attorney Ben Crump represents Massey's family.
I want justice for my baby. Yeah. You're the wrong woman this time.
President Joe Biden released a statement Monday saying Sonya's death at the hands of a responding officer reminds us that all too often, Black Americans face fears for their safety in ways many of the rest of us do not. The case adds to a tragic list of Black Americans killed in their own homes by police, including Air Force Senior Airman Roger Fortson, shot in May when he answered his front door, Botham Jean, Breonna Taylor, and now Sonya Massey. Clayton Sandell, Scripps News, Denver.
All right, here to discuss criminal defense attorney Bob Mata, prosecutor and former criminal defense attorney, law enforcement analyst Joe Ested. Joe, great to see you. Thank you so much for joining me on set. Former police officer, you know, we talk about these things all the time in the office. I want to get your assessment of what you saw on that screen. I know it jumped out at me as being, I couldn't understand why, first of all, a gun was introduced and why deadly force was even necessary, but I want to get your thoughts on what you saw.
Thanks, Mike, in the show. And like you said, we talk about this all the time. If there was ever a need for a murder one, this is exactly it. And the reason why I say that is because when you look at an incident involving an officer, you have to match the officer's actions to policy, to training. And what you see here is not training. And any officer will tell you that. Now, we have a call of a prowler. You go inside, you start communicating. Now, to give the officer benefit of the doubt, there was something that were drawing flags that she was doing. You know, I didn't know my last name. So you see a lot of aggression with the officer. You see a lot of force. I didn't see no compassion. So I'm looking at a lady that might have some mental illness, might be on some medication, and they was extremely forceful. So at that time, she gets up. She asks, can I go turn the water off? And they allow her to go and turn the water off and move the pot. So now you got to think, the officer's mind, right? Now, officers are trained to use force on their perception of the threat. Now, evidently, Officer B, who backed up, he identified like, oh, she has a hot pot. Automatically, his threat level just rose a little bit. And so he's like, oh, she sees that. And she's like, wait a minute, what are you backing up for? Like, that's not, you think I'm gonna hurt you? And he was like, well,
that's what I saw, was that once he pulls the gun out, it changes the dynamic.
Yes.
And now the person is scared and they become unpredictable.
Right.
So was it the right move under the circumstances to pull the gun?
No, not at that.
That is the reason why I put this title up. Perception. The deputy's perception and the other deputy's perception. Were their perceptions that she was a threat with the hot water before shots were fired? As you hear this analyst speaking, former cop. Because that is the thing that nobody focuses on in this storyline, perception. What I'm seeing and thinking, you may not feel it as an outsider watching the video, but could it be that his perception, both of their perceptions, one or the other, was that, okay, something's off? Because as I said before in my previous videos pertaining to this case, the vibe was off from the moment they knocked on the door. Let's just keep it real. Her taking too long to come to the door, them not seeing a prowler on the property, car with a broken window outside that she denied having any knowledge of or it being her car. Then when they go inside, he asks her again. So then she starts talking about the bumper, some dent or something, then says, oh yeah, I know about the window. So it's almost like, well, what's the truth? What's not the truth? Then she's looking for paperwork, asking for the Bible, can't find the ID. So the vibe was downhill the moment they got there, before they even went inside. Because even on the porch, he's asking her how she's doing, and she's doing okay mentally. I think he sensed that something was wrong with her. I'm not making excuses for pulling out the gun, because yes, I feel like maybe a taser or something else could have been done, or kept asking her, hey, just put the pot down, put the pot down. But see, we're never gonna know because they never got to that point, because he pulled his gun out. So we start at the beginning, because that's where the truth lies, the beginning. The vibe was off in the beginning. And I think this officer knew something was not right with her. Now, was he impatient? Did he ever have patience? Is he rude? Is he whatever? You're entitled to your opinion. But that's how he comes across, especially after the killing, most definitely. Okay? The rude comments, calling her a bitch, so on and so forth. All those things were rude and callous, not wanting to render her aid. But the vibe was off in the beginning. Now, we've discussed his perception, her perception. Oh, you're afraid of hot water? Oh, well, I rebuke you. So still, that seems like a weird comment to me. Like I said, it's the outsider looking in. That's a weird comment to me. Because all I would say is, oh, you're afraid? I'm not going to throw it on you. Now you hear this commentator saying, he's saying it, but that's not what she said. Somebody would say logically that should be something she would have said. Oh, don't worry, officer. I'm not going to throw any water on you. I wouldn't be stupid enough to throw the water. I'm just going to put it in the sink. See, all that whole conversation, the vibe itself, as I said, the vibe getting to the house, the vibe her taking too long to open the door, the vibe going in, all of it was off. And it's probably off because of everybody's perception of the situation. She had mental issues. They didn't know about it, allegedly. They're reading her that something's off. She goes, gets the pot off the stove, then poof, she makes an odd comment about rebuking him. He becomes offended, obviously. Now, one would say, well, I wouldn't have got offended by that. But that's the point of him. Obviously, he perceived a threat. Was the threat viable? We will never know because of how it jumped off. We do know at some point she did throw the pot, and we're going to take you into another video to show you, the pot was thrown. And people are arguing back and forth about that. But as I said, I watched the still frame of that. The pot was thrown when she was down on the floor. But the point is, did she throw it because she feared her safety when he drew the gun? So that's what this man here is speaking of. That perhaps the threat once he moved in closer after saying he will shoot her in the face, telling her to put the pot down, then shoots her. But what we didn't see is that she threw the pot because his camera was allegedly off. But the other officer's camera was on, and that's where in that video released by the city, they showed you her down on the floor. The pot made its way near the feet. The common sense would tell you a pot cannot walk. Everything's about perception.
At that current time. And the reason why I say that is because you did exactly what deadly force policy took. You backed up. Officer B backed up. They had a conversation now. And then she says, I rebuke you. I think that was trigger words for the other officer because he quickly escalated. He drew a gun, and when an officer draws a gun, that means the threat level that he's perceiving at the time is at the highest.
Which I don't have a problem with.
Okay.
Because, again, I understand it can be perceived differently.
Right.
But once she begins to rattle off something like that, I can understand to be interpreted as maybe some sort of threat or something's not right here and I might be in danger.
Right.
But now the next steps are where I think I have an issue. What about you?
Yes, definitely. So from the officer's perspective, and we're talking about policy, deadly force policy. Now, he's at the highest. He has that gunpoint. So in his mind, the threat level is high. So if that's the case, right, officers are trained, right, when using deadly force, right, I have to protect someone else or myself. And there's no other options before I can pull that trigger. Keyword, other options. Look at the distance.
Yeah.
Officer B, he moved back. Now, Officer A, during that conversation, he threatened her. I'm going to shoot you in your face, right? We know what he said. But I'm going to shoot you in your face. And he proceeded to go towards the threat. You never, at that time of the highest of his perception, the threat level being that high, you engage that individual. Only unless you got like a hostage situation, you got to quickly eliminate that threat. This wasn't that, right? So why are you going closer to what you already perceive as a high level? Right, exactly.
Let me bring in our guest too, Bob Mata. Let me check in with you real quick.
Let's assess what they have said here. This commentator is saying he should not have gone closer to her. Do you agree or disagree? He should not have zoomed in. What makes it worse is the fact that he did say, I'll shoot you in the face. And then eventually he shoots her in the face. Shot her 3 times. I do believe, yes, that's why it's considered excessive force. 3 shots was not needed. Because if she's on the ground, squatting down, you can't aim anywhere but downward to shoot at her. And then you got to think how tall he is holding a gun. He's going to aim the gun downward. So there's nothing to shoot at but her head and her body. It's a very diabolical story. Did he perceive her as a threat? Number one. Did she perceive him as a threat once he was zooming in with the gun? That's when she takes the pot. She throws her hand up, takes the pot down. But then the pot makes its way near the officers. Should he have moved in closer, or should he have stayed back behind that wall countertop?
You know, Joe Ested here in the studio says this, if there's ever was a first-degree murder case involving a cop, this is it. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. Now, when you watch the other officer or other sheriff's body-worn camera, you can see that there is a point in time where she does actually toss the pot towards Grayson. So it's not on the body-worn cam that we're watching, but there's the other officer's body-worn cam. You can see it's still up.
Exactly. That's the one thing that people are disputing, that she didn't throw the pot. She did throw the pot. That's why they showed you the second body cam in the release of the video that's been released. There are 2 video cameras that are being shown in the actual footage. First camera is of Officer B's, I guess. Okay? Mr. Sean did not turn his on until right before shooting her. So that's why when you watch part of that video, they'll show you a second camera. That camera shows the actual footage of the pot being thrown. when you slow it down, as I've seen it from Dr. Grant's channel, you can see the pot being elevated in the air when she's down on the floor. See, you couldn't see that, one, because his camera wasn't on. And then two, she's down on the floor and the countertop is blocking her. But when you watch camera 2, you can see the pot was flown. And even when you put it on a still frame, you can see that while she was down, she threw the pot. So what this guy in this comment is saying is this when she perceived him as a threat, Officer Sean, because now he's gotten closer with the gun. Oh, I think they're going to shoot me. Let me throw this pot of water.
A lot of terror. I mean, it doesn't change anything about the fact that this woman, whether perceived or real, she called in thinking somebody was prowling around her property, you know, and it turns into 2 cops inside of her house. And, you know, and we know what it's like for black folks in this country to have to deal with law enforcement. She was terrified from the minute they knocked on her door. You could hear it in her voice, and that never changed. This goes.
Now we have this man's opinion, because everybody's giving their opinion. He said she was frightened from the moment she went to the door. Is that true? How do we know that? Because she's not here to tell us she was frightened when they got there. Possibly she's frightened because she's sick. She is mentally ill. Schizophrenic is what that one doctor said. Don't know where he got that from, but let's just say she's schizophrenic. She was schizophrenic. She's going to be afraid anyway, whether the cops ever showed up, because she's not mentally equipped upstairs. So her mind is telling her, hey, there's a guy out there. Hey, there's somebody out there bothering you, tapping on windows, doors, whatever. See, that's the whole point of this. They didn't know she was mentally ill. And that is something I've said to people before. When you are dealing with people who are mentally ill and you don't know it, you're only perceiving them at what you see them at that moment, which we call face value. That's all you have to judge a situation on. And this is how a lot of people with mental problems end up dead or hurt, because acting out and people don't know if they're damn, you know, as people would say, crazy. So you respond in a negative fashion, and then somebody else might come along and say, oh, no, don't do that. They're mentally ill, but it's too late because you didn't know. You're only adapting to the situation at that time. Okay? So it could be a person cussing, fussing, raising hell, throwing a Coke bottle, liquor bottle, and you're like, hell, what the hell's wrong with you? And what people don't seem to understand is that when a person has a mental problem, and the people don't know it, they don't have to deal with them in a diplomatic fashion. It's unheard of, because that's the whole point. Everybody's perception is different. Everybody's response is different. One person might say, hey, put that bottle down. Hey, don't throw that bottle. Hey, why did you throw that bottle? The next person might ignore it. But if you don't know that a person is ill, what do you do? If you decide you want to react, are you thinking in your head, well, maybe I shouldn't do this or do that because they might be mentally ill? Most people don't think like that. Most people only ignore mentally ill people when they know they're mentally ill. And they say, I ain't going to waste my time on that because I already know she has a problem. This is why during the video, you hear him radio into the dispatch, issue a 1096. That's a person who has had contact with law enforcement as a mentally ill person. So I don't think he would call in after the fact if he had known she was mentally ill, because I would assume, or hope at least, he would have sense enough when he got there and he knew that she was a mentally ill person, he would tread lightly in his demeanor and his, handling of her. So that's probably going to come up as well in court. Sir, did you know that she was mentally ill? Did you know they've had many calls to that house? Did you know they were just there earlier? And I'm sure he's going to say, no, I didn't. I only found out after I shot her, and the EMT came in and told me she's ill and that they were there earlier. And I also like to get information on that. Why was the EMT there earlier? Because these officers should have known that when they went to her house. that one, she's a 1096, and two, EMT had been there earlier. That's just ridiculous to me. They didn't know.
Goes from her making a call, hoping to get some help from law enforcement, to now she's dead. So, whether or not she threw a pot, and back to our other guest's statement, all he had to do was move back.
Yeah, there were other ways to de-escalate the situation, which should be their first call to action. April Sampson, ring it.
I totally agree. When I first watched this, I was hurt. There's no other way to describe it. I mean, not only as just a Black female wondering what would happen if I called 911 and showed up, and is this what's going to happen to me? But even now, as you know, I'm a prosecutor and I'm dealing with law enforcement all the time, and we have such good officers. To have someone not follow protocol, not do what he's supposed to, as you said, all he had to do is back up. If she's such a threat, you're by the door. You're closer to the exit than you are to her. So it is mind-boggling to me that this even happened, and to just heighten more of a fear for all of us brown people everywhere, that if I call law enforcement to help me, I could end up dead. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense, and it makes all law enforcement look bad when I know this is just a bad apple.
Let's stop there. They were close to the exit. So, ma'am, what are you saying? They should have left out of the house? You know that wouldn't be appropriate protocol for them to leave out of there. It's not like she had a machine gun. It's not like she had a bomb strapped to her and said, hey, I got a bomb. So I don't think that'd be appropriate protocol for them to have left. Back away from the counter, yes, but not exit the door. Because then they would have been cited for that. Well, why'd you walk out of there? She didn't have a machine gun. She didn't have an AR-15. You know what I'm saying? She didn't say, hey, I got a bomb. And then you said, okay, hell, let's get out of here. That's different. Just a pot of hot water. So this is what's the next question. Besides his perception, besides her perception, what should they have done? Because now you're hearing these people say, oh, they should have backed up. Then what? See, we don't know because it didn't happen. We just know, hey, you better not do that or I'll shoot you in the face. Then she says she's sorry. Then she goes down. Then he goes closer. Then she throws the pot and then he shoots her. Okay, so we're never going to know if they had stood down, backed up, and kept pleading with her, hey, put the pot down. See, we're never going to know what was going to be said or done because it didn't go that way. So it's easy to say, well, they should have done this, they should have done that. But we're not at that situation. Because everything's about perception, as you heard the Black gentleman speaking here. He perceived her as a threat with the pot. Something in his mind told him something's off with her. You don't have to agree. We don't know what her mind was telling her because allegedly she was mentally ill. So who knows what her mind was telling her? That's why it's hard to, try to judge it in a logical standpoint because of everybody's actions and responses. She's mentally ill. Some may think he's a hothead, ego-driven person. So you're trying to weigh it from both sides. So let's just say she's mentally ill. He's ego-driven, hothead, wasn't following protocol by having the camera on. Another question, why didn't he have the camera on? It was a recipe for disaster. And then all this other stuff you're hearing about his past, working in all these different places, allegations of inappropriate conduct with a woman and power abuse of her boyfriend in jail. You're entitled to believe what you want. Those allegations are allegedly unfounded. You be the judge. But what makes the situation worse besides killing the woman, shooting her 3 times? That was excessive. No need to shoot a person 3 times. You can't die but once. He didn't render her aid. He didn't want the other officer to render her aid. His attitude was, yes, vile. His commentary about her, calling her a fucking bitch. He's on the microphone where you can hear it, not thinking that somebody's going to hear that. So then they're going to think, well, damn, did you go in wanting to get jiggy? Of course, you didn't seem like it at first, but once you saw the pot, everything changed. You talk about shooting her in the face, which you did. Then you shoot 2 more times. Why? Then you don't want to render aid. You don't want the other guy to render aid. And you can hear it on the camera. because he's saying it, which puts him in a very disgusting light. And then naturally, anything he's ever done or said is going to come out and be discussed. Just from this one incident, because that's usually what happens in life. Anything you ever did, said, reprimands, relationship problems, people problems, issues, broken the law, everything's coming into question. He shouldn't even be a cop. DUIs before even getting arrested. One DUI, then he gets another one. As a cop, that's all on the police department. That's their fault. They had no business even hiring him. So whether he killed this lady or not, he didn't have no business being a cop with a criminal record. Who cares? It's a misdemeanor. So it don't matter if it's fraud, assault, drinking and driving, drug possession. Why would you want to hire somebody as a cop who has any of those type of charges, misdemeanor or not? And he obviously had a problem with alcohol. So then you got to ask yourself that. Did he currently have a problem with alcohol while on the job as a cop at this police station?
You know, we have so many officers who do such a good job, and then you have this, and we all are back to square one of what do we do?
Yeah, it's crazy because she wasn't a perp. She wasn't somebody they were running after. She posed no real threat to anybody else.
Right.
There were a million ways to handle it. Joe Estead, thank you so much. Yeah, quickly, you have last word?
Yeah, and let's not forget, right? The crossfire, he stepped in front of the barrel of the other officer's gun.
I know.
Then he refused to give her aid. He
Yes.
said, the officer said, I'm going to go get my medical bag. And he said, nah, she shot me. That's not his call.
That's right.
That's
Until
not
you realized
his
she
fault.
was still breathing.
Right.
They said,
Right,
let's go
exactly.
get the kids.
Right,
You know,
exactly.
so just a number of issues there. All right, again, Joe Estead, thank you so much.
All right, that's great commentary. I always try to make people think because it's easy to try to, perceive things. Even for the video, you'll say, well, I saw this. But lately, everybody's arguing about a pot. But you've heard several commentaries telling you a pot was thrown because there's two sets of videos that you didn't see. One's on, one's off. The one that was off didn't show the view of the pot. That's Sean Grayson's camera, the one who has been accused of first-degree murder. The one that shows the pot being thrown is Deputy B's camera. So number one, Mr. Grayson, why didn't you have your camera on? Number two, have you been walking around with your camera off? We learned in certain circumstances the cameras can be off. Courtrooms, court buildings, talking to a witness, an informant, the camera doesn't have to be on. But in this case, your camera should have been on the moment you got out of your car. You should have had your camera on. Because I do remember hearing a flick, watching the video, and I thought, oh, he had the volume down. So why didn't you have the camera on? Did you normally keep your camera off when you went to scenes of 911 calls? How many times will we find out he's had his camera off, volume off, down? Will we hear that he has other reprimands that have not been mentioned publicly? We hear he's worked for 6 agencies. We also hear he has criminal records dealing with gun possession, marijuana, and DUIs. We also now have to look at the police departments that hired him. Why would you hire him? Why would you even allow him to go through training as an officer? It makes no sense. So now you all are sending a message to people out here in the street. Yeah, you can walk around with a gun, drugs in your car, and later go apply to the police academy. See if you'll get in. Makes no sense. Who is Sean Grayson? Is he a hothead, ego-driven person? Callous, didn't care for her, don't care for people? Are we then going to later hear about relationships where he's unruly, cocky, arrogant, don't follow instructions? As I told you yesterday, he got a general discharge from the Army, which means he was cited for doing something not exemplary. So what happened in the Army? Okay? And as I said in that commentary, are we talking about a guy who is a hothead? He can't follow instructions. He wants to be validated. He wants a job of superiority, such as being in the Army, being a police officer, doing security work. We've heard this with narcissists, sociopaths, and people who've gone on to do great harm, such as mass killers, shooters. They always wanted to be in security. We've also heard that with serial killers. Want to be in control. And I think that's what we have here. A guy who's always wanted to be in control, wanted validation, So that's why he went in the military. That's why he did security work for a hospital. That's also why he applied to be a cop. But look where it got him in the end. He's facing 3 charges. First-degree murder. He's pled not guilty. He goes to court on August 26th. And we will see if he gets a bail or a bond. Right now, he's being held without a bail. Some are going to say, why? Why is he held without a bail or bond? Because we've seen lots of people who have killed people, cut and dry. They get a bond, they get a bail. Do they feel like he's a flight risk, judge? Just curious. No, I have not heard that mentioned. But I'm curious of why he does not have a bail or a bond. This is an interesting commentary because, as I said, on this network, I always try to get people in a position to want you to think about everything, because it's easy to judge a situation according to what you think you saw and didn't see and hear. But the one thing I've always told you is that what I see, I said this so many times on this network, what I see, you don't see. What I hear, you don't hear. That's why I always go back and re-listen to videos, commentaries, even watching a movie. If there's something I don't hear, I play it back because everything's pivotal in a story. Correct? Of course. So you want to replay. And some of you still don't believe she threw the pot. So then you have to tell yourself, well, if she didn't throw the pot, then why did he shoot her? Say, whoa. Why shoot her? Because if you put the pot down, I have no reason to. Correct? If she set the pot down in the sink, which she did not, she took the pot to the floor, which is bizarre to me. Because when he first said, I'll shoot you in the face, that's before she even ducked. I would have put the pot in the sink. Okay, let me put this pot down because I see this is getting ready to get ugly. Let me put this pot in this sink. I always thought that was strange to me, that she took the pot down. The average person, I don't think, would have done that. Because once I said what I said about rebuking him, he's saying, like, what did you say? You can see he's become offended. Now he's telling me, you're not gonna put the pot down? I think I'd put that pot in that sink. But that's the point. I'm not her. And if you're talking about somebody dealing with mental illness, you don't know what her mind was telling her, what a voice was telling her. Just like the guy who spoke last here says, she perceived a threat as soon as they got there. Well, see, she's mentally ill. So that's why I said you don't know what the voices were telling her. Because I had to re-listen to some commentary from a lawyer's channel where he has a guy filming his, YouTube channel, and the guy is saying, did you hear this? Did you hear this? Stuff I didn't even hear at first when I watched the first video, where she's apologizing, saying she's sorry, and she's saying something about don't hurt me. I didn't even hear that part. And then that's when that cop, Sean, says, we're not here to hurt you. See, that shows you there's something wrong with her. That's why I said what I said before. He knew something was off with her at the door. This is before they even get in the house. He knew something was off with her. That's why he said to her, are you okay mentally? Because he knew something was wrong with her. He knew something was off. And that's what this black guy in this commentary is saying. It's about perception. So imagine if he's at the door assuming something's wrong with her. People say, he should have left after that, No, he was worried about that truck on the side. That's why he asked it. Because he was about to leave off the porch. And then he said, one more thing. This truck around here, you sure you don't know anything about this truck? He's supposed to ask her about the truck. And the truck had broken windows. So I'd want to know about that truck too. She's saying, she thinks there's a prowler there. For all we know, the prowler was broke into the truck. How do I know? I'm not a mind reader. But what I'm trying to say is the vibe was off. It was obvious. And as I said, everybody don't perceive things the same. But I could tell from the moment they got there, I said, this ain't going well. And I already knew that she was dead because the story is already ran. But I said, well, I'm going to watch this video. The vibe to me was on the porch. They're knocking on the door, no answer. One of them makes a comment, hope she's not dead in there. Then 30 minutes later, she is dead because one of you kill her. Ironically, she's cursing through the door. That's bad mojo right there. She said something like, who the F is it? So see that right there. All that's negative. And I can say when she was standing at the sink, I felt a little negative vibe from her. Somebody think, well, God, I sound mean, but I'm not. I'm just saying what my perception is. What she was saying about the hot water. Like, oh, you don't like the water or you're scared of the water? I wouldn't have said anything. But that's the point. I'm not her. I would have just put the pot in the sink, and then walk back to the living room and sit down. Because you don't want to do a lot of moving around when you have police officers in your house. Because what people refuse to understand is that the cops don't know you and you don't know them. And if you've watched enough TV, you know how things can jump off at a moment's notice. So the best thing you're supposed to do when you have officers in your house, you're supposed to sit your ass down and be still. But see, all bets are off in this situation because she's mentally ill. So as I said, you don't know what voices were talking to her and telling her this or what she perceived as a threat, not a. I just thought the conversation about the water was off to me. While listening, I thought, where's this conversation going? Why is she talking about rebuking him? Because he says he didn't want to be near hot water. Well, why does somebody need to be rebuked? And then somebody else can argue and say, well, that's not no big deal. But as this analyst is saying, but you're not the cop standing in the room. So perhaps he perceived something negative. That's why he said to her, hey, put the pot down. I'll shoot you in your face. Should she have been shot? No. Shot 3 times? No. I think they should have just told her to put the pot down, stay behind the wall, and hopefully she would have put the pot in the sink. But we're never going to know that because it went left. And we don't know exactly what he was thinking. We don't know exactly what she was thinking, but we can see that he assumed the worst at that moment. And I guess a lot of people feel like, well, it went too far. No matter what he was thinking, he should have just waited. But he didn't. He moved in, and possibly that is why she threw the pot. It's because once she ducked down, she saw he was closer with his gun drawn. The other officers behind him with his gun out. Okay, I surrender, but let me do you one better. I'll throw this pot of hot water. This is the craziest case I've seen thus far. I've seen it all. This was just a sick situation. And that's why I've asked, because everybody's, up in arms about what has happened to her. Some are going to say he was in the right. Some are going to say he was in the wrong. I'm asking the question, what was the appropriate thing for him to do? Because we can go back and forth arguing all day. But the point is, she is dead. He's now charged with murder. What was the protocol supposed to be? Because telling them to leave makes no sense. Common sense. They would have been fired had they left out of there. Because the first thing the officer, sergeant would have said, well, why would you leave out of there? Because she had a pot of hot water. You're feet away from her and that countertop is blocking you. That would have made no sense for them to leave. because we know that they're not supposed to leave a situation. Threat or no threat, perceived threat or perceived non-threat. They're not supposed to leave. Then some could argue, well, she couldn't find the ID. You could have just said, fuck it. Just leave already. Because you could tell they were tired at that point. She's digging through the bag. She's looking at the Bible. She's all over the place. I think someone would have said, you know what? Let's not worry about it. Let's get the hell out of here. She can't find the ID. Let's just let it be. So I think they should have ran her name when they got there. That way you'd have seen the EMTs that had been there earlier, fire calls, whatever. Domestic situations, criminal background, all that should have been done before you got there. That way you'd know she was a 1096 and to try to tread lightly in dealing with her. That's what I would have done. Now, was it done? I don't know. But we know the 1096 could have been done because we don't find that out till near the end of the video that he called a dispatch and asked. And then he responds negative. I don't know. Just a hot mess. Well, he didn't want to comfort her. And that's another issue as well. He didn't render aid. And then he tried to stop the other guy. And as you hear in his commentary, he shouldn't have done that. That wasn't his call. So this is where he appears callous. So that's why some people are going to say, well, I don't have any empathy for him because look at how he treated her afterwards. So to me, he appeared gun happy. Couldn't wait to draw the gun. Some people are probably going to say that. Oh, he couldn't wait to draw the gun. Because look what he said. I'll shoot you in the face. That's what messed him up right there. He should have never said that. Who says that? Crazy. The thing I think about in cases like this, what was on his mind that day, that morning? Because that was in the early wee hours. What was on her mind? You know what I'm saying? What was on each person's mind before this incident? Because nobody thinks they're going to end up murdering a person, and no one thinks they're going to end up fighting for their life either. So what was on his mind that day? Well, what's going on with her? Because I believe she has some stuff going on. Honestly, I do. Let's see what Coffin Daffer has to say about this case. Thank you for joining me. Welcome to the Vault XL.
Now for what's trending in true crime. An Illinois woman is dead after calling police to her home for help. According to the sheriff's office is reporting 36-year-old Sonia Massey was shot in the face by a sheriff's deputy named Sean Grayson July the 6th. Police say that she called 911 to report a suspected prowler. When entering her home, the two deputies are seen engaging with Massey, having discussion with her. Everything was very pleasant before granting her permission to move a boiling pot of water that was steaming from her stove. Let's take a look together at what happens next.
I don't know where my ID is.
You have that stack right there, maybe?
1 second.
We don't need a fire right here.
All right.
So let's go there. Let's stop there because now listening to this, there's something was off here. I've said this before knowing she was mentally ill. There's something is off here He knew something was off. Some people may never want to accept this, but he knew something was off. He's already behind the counter. Why would he be backing away? This is why I keep telling people, when you become a police officer, you go through training, allegedly how to deal with people, learning their behavior, what to look for in mental illness, drug abuse, alcohol abuse. And I think he felt something was off with her because you hear her saying, "Where are you going?" That makes no sense to me. Why are you asking a police officer where he's going? Because as that guy said, the commentator said in the last court TV segment, he perceived a threat with her. That's why he asked. That's why he's moving back for some reason. Because think about it. You're already behind the counter and she's saying, "Well, where are you going?" And so he's like, "Oh, you've got a boil, you got a pot of boiling water." That whole conversation is off. This is why I always tell people, always go back and replay the video. I mean, I don't care what the video is about. It could be a movie. It doesn't matter. Always go back because you're always going to hear and see something that you missed. And I missed that at first. Where are you going? Oh, I'm trying to get away from that pot. So it's not like he's already in the kitchen with her. I could see, he's in the kitchen. But common sense will be like, well, he wouldn't be in the kitchen. Who's going to be standing over somebody with a pot? You're not there to, watch her cook. So did he perceive her as a threat, or he just had a bad feeling about her? I feel like he had a bad feeling about her. I could be wrong. Because that doesn't make any sense for her to say she's at least 7 feet away, 10 feet. Where are you going? Oh, trying to get away from that pot. Although he's already separated from a wall, it's a strange conversation. Very, very strange. Hello, everybody in the chat. Well, it could be something off with him. In the end, it's not even going to matter because everything's about perception, as I've said before. That's why I titled this video, Perception versus Fear. Her perception of life, her perception of him, the other officer, his perception of the situation, the other officer's perception, we don't know because we don't hear them talking. They can't speak. She can't speak because she's dead. And then she also had mental problems. So that's why I'm saying everything, in my opinion, is that it was off as soon as they got there. The whole dynamic was off. It was off before they even got in. You can scratch the pot being thrown. You could pretend she didn't get shot. Something was off when they got to the door. It was obvious. Because I don't know anybody that calls the police and don't come to the door after calling them. That makes no sense to me. That's why I'm saying the situation was off from the jump. So I weigh everything from beginning to end. I don't jump in the middle. I don't jump at the end of the story. I start at the beginning. In the beginning of the story is her calling 911 for whatever reason. Number 2, they go to the scene. They can't even get her to come to the door. And as I said to people before, could it be she was boiling the pot deliberately? Did that ever occur to anybody? And I'm not here to pass blame on a victim, but all of this is weird to me because that never crossed anyone's mind. Because somebody in the chat said, "Damn, Queen, that's an interesting thought." What do you all think she was doing in there while they're standing out there for 4 minutes, banging on the door? That's the police out there. But that's the point. If you're mentally ill, you don't know what her mind was telling her. Her mind could have been telling her that's the perpetrator outside. Her mind could have been telling her they're the enemy, but she don't know because she hasn't opened the door. Well, they were irritated. Anybody would be irritated because these people have jobs to do. They got to go out to the public and see about whatever's going on with you, the neighbor, whatever. So we're out here knocking on the door because you called us here. So you're not coming to the door. They don't know what's going on inside that house. That's why one of the guys said, I hope she's not dead in there. And that was ironic as well, because next thing you know, poof, 30 minutes later, she is dead. Who knew that? Nobody would assume they went there to kill her or she thought she was going to end up dying. It's just a weird dynamic how it all played out. Sorry about that. Just a weird dynamic how it all played out.
Now, Grayson has since been fired from the sheriff's department. He is now facing charges of first-degree murder, aggravated battery, and official misconduct. This morning, we're asking, what aren't we seeing in that video?
So the person in the comment talking about the pot being boiled. See, that's the whole point. The pot was boiled before they even walked in. I think anybody with common sense knows that. We also hear in one article, it says an unknown substance was in the pot. So it doesn't even say that it was water. What if you find out that wasn't water in the pot? So then you're going to have to start saying, because a lot of people don't like to accept what they hear, then that means it was deliberately boiled to do something nefarious, such as throw the hot water on the cops or a burglar prowler. This is why I keep saying, you can't rationale this story for the obvious reasons. You're dealing with somebody that's mentally ill. You're dealing with a cop who's got some not so great things being said about him as far as, jumping from job to job. But then one could say, well, that doesn't make you a bad person because you went from job to job. What makes him look bad is shooting her 3 times, pulling the gun out, perhaps should have used another method, and then his callousness in how he talked about her afterwards. So that's going to make people say, well, he just seems gun happy because look at how bad he talked about her. He didn't want to render her aid. Maybe he had checked out. Maybe he didn't give a fuck. I don't know. We know that once he goes to court, he ain't gonna say that. No, it wasn't like that. I just knew I hit her in the head and she's probably dead. Although the guy's over there, she's gurgling. You can hear her gurgling. She's still holding on. Maybe she could have lived, just would have had an eye missing. I don't know. We're never going to know. But everything's about perception. It's obvious this could have went a better way, but it didn't. That's the point. It didn't. And we don't know what each person was thinking about the other one. For all we know, her mind was telling her, hey, there's a perpetrator outside. There's a prowler. Go boil some water. They try to break in. You could throw the water on them. I don't know. Because what's weird about all that, she's taking forever to get dressed to come to the door. Remember when they go to the door? She goes to the door. He said, what took you so long? Oh, I was trying to get dressed, sir. So somebody's going to still be thinking, if you're thinking like the queen, because I weigh everything. You're getting dressed and you're also cooking food at the same time. Strange. It's very strange.
That's important for us to know. I have 2 tremendous guests. I'm going to bring them in now. I want to welcome in trial attorney and the former president of the National Bar Association, attorney C.K. Hoffler, and retired FBI special agent, firearms instructor, and former SWAT team member, Jennifer Coffin.
For the last time, everybody. Obviously, nobody has watched the video. The video shows 2 cameras. Grayson's did not have his camera on. He turned it on before he shot her. When you watch the second camera, which is Deputy B's camera, you will see the pot thrown when she's on the floor. If you put it on a still frame, you can see her down on the floor with the pot elevated. A lot of people just don't want to accept the fact she threw the damn pot. It's in a still frame. You can see it. Why would pot holders be up near your head? Please explain that. Because she had the pot in her hand. She had red pot holders. One pot holder is in the left hand. One red pot holder is in the right hand with the pot. In the still frame, you could see the pot holder and the pot. There's no logical reason for a pot to be up near your face if you didn't throw it.
And Daffer, great to see you brilliant ladies this morning and have you both able to weigh in from your various areas of expertise in law and law enforcement. So let's take these in turn, talking about the incident itself and then what comes next now that this case is in the criminal justice system. Agent Coffindeffer, would you start us off, please? Talk to us a bit about what you're seeing in this video and what you're most curious from it.
Good morning, ladies. First of all, I think it's very important to see how quickly everything escalated here, when in fact law enforcement has they must de-escalate situations. She goes and removes this water, and then I believe she makes it colder because they talk about the steam coming off. That's what I gleaned from this. And it doesn't seem that she says, "I rebuke you in the name of Jesus" to these officers, but rather sort of says this. This is a training situation.
Well,
I
she
think
did
from the
say it,
standpoint these
Coffindeffer.
officers don't recognize seemingly that she really isn't a threat, and they completely escalated the situation and shot when they absolutely had no authority to shoot, in my opinion.
Agent Coffindeffer, thank you for that. And now the county has presented it to a grand jury. They've issued a true bill. This office.
See, now this is why I said why everybody sees and hears different things. Coffindeffer is saying, former agent said she didn't hear her say it. Well, honey, she did say it, whether it's relevant or not. I think it's relevant because I understand why anybody would say that. It's just boiling water. And I also said to myself, I hear water running. Why is the water running? Before in one of the videos. So now you hear them mentioning here. So obviously she was trying to cool the water down for some reason. I don't know. This is just a weird situation. So why did she tell them, "I rebuke you," just because he didn't want to be near the water? I always tell myself, why even ask why? Because once you know that the person's mentally ill, it's pointless to even ask. But that's the point. He doesn't know she's mentally ill. So she could have said anything. Hey, Mickey Mouse likes hot water. Then he would have said, Mickey Mouse, what does that have to do with anything? That's the point. A person is mentally ill. You agree with Coffindeffer about what? You didn't hear when she said, "I rebuke you"? Yes, Granny. Well, Granny, she heard it. That's why she's repeating it in the chat. How's it you didn't hear that? That's what got all this shit started in the first place. Her saying that. So what is it that you agree with what? She didn't say it? Oh, Lord.
Officers fired and facing charges. C.K. Hoffler, to you next, please. Would you take it from here as this progresses through the legal system? Your thoughts on the video and what the video doesn't show as well.
Well, good morning. The video is probably the most compelling piece of evidence that we know at this point. It does show the escalation by law enforcement versus the de-escalation. It shows the culpability of law enforcement, and so I think it's a very, very powerful piece of evidence. This evidence will be used in the criminal case against this officer. This is so very tragic. I've got to disclose, Ben Crump is a very good friend. He's my co-counsel on a number of cases. I saw him a couple of days ago. We were at the National Bar meeting. We talked about this case. This is so egregious. This woman really was not a threat on any level, saying, "I rebuke you in the name of Jesus," and her tenor, her tone, her body language was not threatening at all. Yet this officer somehow thought that she was threatening him with a pot of water. And so this is a clear example, Julie, I think of a case that for sure is going to go to trial. And I would predict, even based on this limited evidence that I've seen, which is the video that speaks volumes, I predict there will be a conviction if he doesn't plea out. This is horrific. It's extraordinarily disturbing, and it really causes goop. Whenever I see this footage, I feel very, very, very troubled that this has actually happened to this unfortunate young lady.
I appreciate your comments so much, CK. Thank you for that, and for the mention as well of the possibility of a civil suit, too. As you noted, your colleague and friend Ben Crump is representing the Massey family, and so the legal problems for this fired deputy probably won't stop with the criminal case. There's going to be civil action as well. CK, do you know, has anything been filed yet? I'm not sure if he might have mentioned that, or sometimes the idea is wait until the criminal case plays out.
Well, I think that there's some additional information. This is my understanding now. It's been about 3 days or 4 days, but they're waiting some additional information. But for sure, this is going to be a very significant civil case. I think it's a case. A lot of times when you have these excessive use of force cases, you may not have all the evidence to be able to launch a very strong civil case, but this is a very strong civil case with the evidence that we've seen thus far. And there's probably more evidence that we haven't seen.
Point well taken, CK. We want to know what more is more, vantage point. There's a portion of it we can't see. So certainly more information about this, the better. Agent Coffendeffer, one last question for you, please. Just out of curiosity, when the officers are there looking at this objectively, with the training that you have, what would have been the better thing to do
exactly
for them?
What should they have done?
Fearful of the boiling water being thrown at them, what would have been the better way? I'm just curious because I noted neither one of them backed away from what I could see, and I'm just curious what the training would be in a situation like that.
Well, such a great question. First of all, it's to get distance, especially when you're just looking at boiling water as being the intended weapon, apparently, that they saw as being threatening to them. So back away, get a position where something is between them, which there was already counter, but we see a lot of other items there, and talk to her and say, step away from that pot, please step away over here, and you need to get control of the situation in a very de-escalating manner. How they thought that it would be justified to pull a weapon when their life wasn't in jeopardy, nor serious bodily harm at that point because of the distance, really defies logic.
Appreciate both of you sharing such excellent insight with us. We know this case is far from over. We'll continue reporting any new information that we learn. In the meantime, let's turn to some other trending news.
Okay. Woo, Lord have mercy, mercy, mercy. Where do we go from here? So, that's the question I've been asking. What should they have done? Because everybody is arguing about what was done, not done. Nobody sees the pot thrown. The video is out there. Either you don't want to see it, that's up to you. But there's a still frame on Dr. Grant's channel because they've done still frames. The pot is in the air while she's down on the floor. So unless the pot has feet or wings, hey, great question. What should they have done? Stood back, not drawn the weapons. If he perceived that what she said was negative, offensive, all he had to do, can you please put the pot down, ma'am, and come back over here so we can finish this business and we'll get out of your hair. That's all. But it didn't go that way. That's the point. That's the moral of the story. He perceived it as a threat, her having the pot, her commentary about being rebuking him. She did say that. It's not made up. Why she said it, I don't know. Did she think he was evil? I don't know. I don't know how she would think he's evil just because he says he didn't want to be near the water. But But that's the whole point. She's mentally ill. So her perception of life is not going to be the same as a half-assed rational person anyway. But that's the point. He didn't know she was mentally ill. So if you go back and rewind this story and then go forward with what you know now, as far as her being mentally ill, it explains everything from point 1 to point 2. She's taking her time about getting to the door. She's cussing while they're at the door. She tells them she was trying to get dressed, but yet she's got a damn boiling pot on the stove. For all I know, she thought they were the perpetrator. For all we know, her mind was telling her they're the perpetrator. She acts like she's scared or she's timid. He mentions that at the door. We're not here to hurt you. We're just trying to see what's going on with you. They're really trying to get the hell out of there. Because once they saw there was no perpetrator on the property, they were ready to go. Sound like they were trying to hang around and eat ice cream with her. But it went left as soon as he wanted to double check about that truck. Then they go in to get the ID. That's when it went downhill. And I wish they had just said to her, don't worry about the ID. If you have any more concerns later, call us back. That's what they should have done, just left. That's what they should have done, was just left when she could not find the ID. Well, the video has been shown that she threw the pot. I don't know how many times I got to keep saying it. That's the reason why Court TV did this video. What's not seen? Because there's 2 cameras rolling. Grayson's camera did not show her throw the pot because he turned it on right before shooting her. But they said it has a delay. It should still show it, from what I was told, listening to the news. But Deputy B's camera shows the pot being thrown. And I've seen a still frame of her on the floor with the pot raised. So that wouldn't make any sense for a pot to be near your head if you didn't throw it. How would a pot get above your head? That's my commentary. Perception versus fear. Did he perceive her to be a threat? Was it a valid perception? Some will say no. What was the protocol for this type of situation? What should they have done? Just waited till she put the pot down. Put the pot down, ma'am. Put the pot down, ma'am. Then you got to ask yourself that. Would she have put it down? See, you don't know because we didn't get to see that type of response from them or interaction from her. He betted everything on her commentary about being rebuked. So at some point in that commentary, he felt offended or fearful or thought she was going to do something. He got a bad vibe from her. I can't say because I'm not in Sean Grayson's head. So what you have to ask yourself, if you don't want to believe she didn't throw the pot, then why did he shoot her after she went to the floor after saying she was sorry? Just ask him. I'll shoot you in your face. Okay, I'm sorry. Then she goes to the ground. So then why did he shoot her? Just saying. If she didn't throw the pot, she's already on the ground, then why would he shoot her? Make it make sense. She's on the floor. She's surrendered. But yet he shoots her 3 times. And he knows the other guy has a camera on. Say, well, so what was he supposed to say? Turn your camera off. So this is why I always tell people to pay attention to the details. Because I think a lot of people don't want to accept the fact about the pot for some crazy ass reason. Nobody wants to accept it. So I'm going to ask, if she didn't throw the pot, in your opinion, or what you say you did not see in the videos, then why would he shoot her 3 times while she's on the floor? Make it make sense. She has surrendered. She's on the floor. Why shoot her? That's my commentary. Like, share, subscribe. Check out the posts. Check out the videos, the uploads, the shorts. Got more shorts in the queue for you to watch pertaining to Gypsy Rose. This case, also a case out of Georgia pertaining to a child left outside. Lord, that's a crazy story. A mother was able to look at an app to see that her child was outside in the play area and the other son was inside of the daycare. How did they leave this child outside? Please check out that said information. And if you'd like to donate to this great network, $McAngie 129 Cash App. $McAngie 129 Cash App. Stickers and chats are always welcome during the live stream. This is live number 2. Live number 3 will be pertaining to Seth Rogers and Mr. Joe Petito. He's going to have him on his network. And I'm hoping I'll be able to try to stream it if he doesn't have it on private, so we can see what Mr. Petito has to say to Seth Rogers. And once again, Sebastian Rogers is still missing from Rogersville, Tennessee. And that's the latest information. You all have a wonderful evening. My movie of the week is Somewhere Quiet, now playing on Hulu. And I also recommend watching Tim. It's about an AI-generated robot that this lady has in her home. He's a prototype that she was working on with her job. And there he is in her house being her servant. And Tim decides to do things his way. At some point, this robot thinks he's human. It's very interesting. Very interesting movie. Tim, now playing on Hulu, and Somewhere Quiet, also playing on Hulu. Thank you for your time. You've been listening to The Vault XL.